Hi, loves, and welcome to the With Love Always podcast, a podcast to help you live the life you were created for. We are your hosts and your friends, Bree
and Marissa,
and we're so grateful you're here.
We pray you listen and leave feeling more inspired, encouraged, and uplifted.
Hi, guys. Welcome back. I am so excited that you guys are tuning in and listening today. We are always so grateful that you are here. For today's episode, we are going to be diving all into the topic of friendships, specifically 6 different ways you can become a friend that everyone wants in their corner. So something that we have just been discussing so much as two women who are in our 20s is just how much friendship is of value in your 20s, but also just how tough it can be to navigate friendships when you are an adult. I think friendship is something that is so universal, something that we all crave and want more of in our life, but is also something that becomes a little bit harder once you enter your 20s. Because I think about it this way, different stages of your life, whether it's childhood, high school, college, whatever it may be, there is such a natural bond that is created because you're essentially like walking through the same seasons of life. You're walking through, school and classes and sports and whatever it may be, proximity, city, whatever it could be. And I think that's something that's really unifying, really bonding. But once you enter your late 20s or your early 20s, whatever, like part of your 20s and beyond, the way that you're able to relate to people really changes. And I think that's when it becomes a little bit harder to create and establish that bond. So friendship is so important in our lives at any stage, because I think ultimately the friendships that we keep and the way that they add value to our life really affect every single area of our life, whether it's our career, our personal self-development, whether it's our faith. It just touches everything in our life. And so that is exactly why we want to touch on friendships and on the importance of friendships, and also just provide some encouragement, advice, and our own experience and wisdom to hopefully help you today just really grow in deeper, more intentional friendships in your own life. So with all of that said, let's just jump right on into our very first point on friendships, and that is the importance of creating vulnerability. So vulnerability, I think, is something that right off the bat can just sound so uncomfy, because vulnerability requires something of you, and that is to be vulnerable. But I just think about in life, but specifically in friendships, vulnerability is ultimately the thing that creates and builds trust in any sort of relationship, but specifically speaking into friendships. I think about the times that I feel the closest to someone, the most seen by someone. It's usually after a very vulnerable conversation, whether it's me opening up or that person trusting me to share what they're going through. And so I think vulnerability is so necessary when it comes to friendship, because ultimately it just creates that intimacy. And so with that said, I would love to ask you, Marissa, because vulnerability can be so hard for us, like I said, not only as a friend, but just as a human being. What are some of the ways that you find you can become vulnerable in your own friendships?
I think you kind of touched on it, but just that idea of being the first one to actually open up. Because like you mentioned, it is kind of scary to just put yourself out there, talk about feelings that they might not know you've been feeling. And so I think in order to do that, you just have to be kind of raw and real yourself. And so I think part of that is just, kind of going deeper and sharing what's actually going on. So if somebody asks you how you are, actually digging a little deeper and talking about some of the challenges, or just going beyond the I'm good, like work's busy, life is busy, and just not being afraid. If you're in a healthy friendship, they're going to want you to share more. And so just go ahead and be open and share, and that will provide the space for them to do the same. And I think it creates a really powerful conversation. So honestly, just open up, go beyond the surface level that we typically just kind of get comfortable with and engage in. And just kind of start it off. I think that's the key thing. But I want to ask you, how do you create deeper vulnerability in moments when it feels scary to go there in a conversation?
Yeah, I think I love what you just touched on, because I think ultimately vulnerability is something that is going to require one person, whether it's you or the other person, to simply just dive deep and just go there. Even when not prompted, even if it feels like it's kind of out of nowhere, I think for me, just fearlessly asking those tough questions, whether it's like, how are you really doing? Or what is your thought on this? And just asking those questions, having those conversations, even if you don't know how that person's going to reciprocate it at first. I find, at least for myself and in my own experiences, when I've just decided, you know what, I'm just going to send it. I'm going to ask this hard question. I'm going to open up this conversation. I'm going to ask for this opinion, even though I'm scared, even though I don't know how they'll respond. I don't know what will be said. I don't know if we'll agree. I just find that it just leads to such a beautiful conversation, and it really just leads to a greater sense of intimacy. And usually when there's like one open invitation for vulnerability, it just extends beyond maybe even that initial conversation, and just also creates this level of trust that next time you're like seeing this friend, you feel more comfortable to ask them maybe a more uncomfy question. So I think truly just kind of, you have to be unafraid to go there. You just kind of have to go there and see where the conversation leads from there. And like I said, ultimately, when you allow yourself permission to just kind of tear down that wall and expose yourself, if you will, whether it's sharing like your honest opinion on something or your candid struggle on something, whatever that vulnerability looks like for you in that immediate moment, it does just create a bridge for greater trust, greater friendship, and just a greater bond. And so with all of that said, with vulnerability comes moments when you likely do not agree with somebody. Maybe you do, but the likelihood of agreeing with someone all the time is not very high, as I'm sure we all know. Which brings me to our second point, is that to be a really good friend, you have to be a friend who is willing to not always agree with someone, but to instead be a friend that encourages someone in truth. And so I think oftentimes it can feel very easy, like to think that friendship has to be a like bond with someone that you always agree with. And like, I think it's easy and can be our default, honestly, as humans, to just want to always agree with someone, because I mean, it requires nothing of you to be like, yeah, like that circumstance sucks, or yeah, this person sucks, or oh gosh, whatever it may be. Like, it's easy to just conform our opinions, our beliefs, our perspectives, our whatever it may be, to agree with someone because it's easy, it's comfortable, it doesn't require tension. But I've found in my life that the greatest thing that I can do to a friend is actually not agree with them, but instead encourage them, direct them towards truth. So my greatest goal as a friend is that the longer that someone is friends with me, that they are actually pushed so much outside of their comfort zone, that they are actually pushed to discover tangible ways that they're able to grow within themselves. I ultimately want to be a friend that pushes my friends towards growth. I never want someone to be friends with me long enough and think, oh, I've remained the same, or oh, I'm the same person as I was when I met Bree a month ago or 2 months ago or a year ago. I ultimately want my friends to look at the value and the benefit that my friendship has provided and see tangible ways of, wow, because Bree encouraged me in this area, I was able to grow. Or because Bree disagreed with me in this area, I was able to reevaluate what I was doing or thinking, or ways I was acting, and vice versa. Like, I want to look at my friends and be like, wow, they're leading by such example that maybe is like not what I'm doing, that I'm so challenged to evaluate myself and to like examine ways that I can grow and I can transform and I can just be sharpened. And all this is to say, it really reminds me of how in the Bible, in Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so does one person sharpen another. I think that is my greatest goal as a friend and as, a follower of Jesus, is like, I want to ultimately sharpen my friends so much to just be as sharp as a sword, because I love them too much to allow them to remain the same. And so with all that said, I know like it can sound so amazing, but it's really hard and really uncomfortable sometimes to be the friend that tells your friends the truth versus just agreeing with them. So I would love to hear from you, Marissa. Like, how do you go about this in your friendships?
Yeah, well, I really like what you were saying about just you love somebody too much not to tell them the truth. And I think that's what's so important to remember and to communicate with your friends. If you authentically love somebody, they're going to see that and they're going to know that this friend is speaking truth because they want the best for me, because they want me to grow. And there's no judgment. It's not that you're trying to tell them what to do or be controlling by any means. You're just sincerely communicating, I love you, and here's like the opportunity I see in your life. So I think part of that is just reaffirming who they are. So reaffirming their identity in Christ, reaffirming the person that they are, but also the person that they want to become. So I think specifically, like, if a friend is struggling, let's say it's a boyfriend or a relationship that's just, not healthy, I think something you can do is just encourage them and say, like, you're an amazing friend. Here's what you give in a relationship. Here's what I see and what I know you want. Like, continue to strive for people that meet you where you're at. And so I think there's ways to speak that truth in a very life-giving way that isn't tearing down their decisions. It's not tearing down other people. It's just reminding them of their identity, what they're striving for, the best version of themselves, and how they can get there. And ultimately, you're there to help them achieve that. And, you're working with them, and this doesn't have to create opposition. This is a partnership. And together, you guys are trying to do that for one another. Together, you're trying to sharpen one another.
Wow. So that was so good. That was fire. I need to take notes. That's amazing.
But I feel like you have a lot of insight with that, and you're really great at pointing friends towards the truth. So how do you go about that, especially when it seems kind of scary and you don't know if they're always going to agree with what that truth is? How can you just kind of remain strong in that and just encouraging?
Yeah. Gosh, it can feel so tough, but I think so much to what you just said, just to like affirm and solidify that as well, is ultimately, like, when I am willing to sharpen a friend and I'm willing to go there and disagree with a friend, it's actually because I love them so much that I want to direct them towards the best life, the best version of themselves, the best of everything. And it's not because I think like, oh, I have the wisdom or like whatever it may be. It's like, it's because I just see the ultimate value and the ultimate worth that they uphold, that I want them to live a life according to that. And I think ultimately, like, when we can share and sharpen and disagree from that place, our friends can really feel that. Like, the intention in which we are disagreeing and the intention in which we are making someone uncomfortable with truth can be felt. And I know for myself, like, in moments when a friend has called me higher and corrected me or called me out, and I just know that they love me with such sincerity of heart, it makes me so receptive to what they have to say. And so I think just like championing our friends so well in every area of life that when it comes to the moment in which you are disagreeing with them, they know that this is just another extension of you championing them, celebrating them, and wishing them the absolute best. And I think as a friend, like, when you are the one doing the disagreeing or the truth calling out, just also making sure, like, checking in with the intention of your own heart and making sure that you really are doing it from a pure of heart place, like ensuring that it is for the absolute benefit of the other and that there's nothing that your ego can gain or you can gain in that moment, but it's truly because you want to see your friend just upholding the highest version of themselves in their life. And so, yeah, that's probably what I try to do. We're both imperfect in that, but I know for me, in moments when I chose to be honest and disagree with a friend, it's just one of the many other ways that has created greater unity in my friendship, because my friend sees that I love them enough to do that and be uncomfortable. I think with all of these points so far, jumping into our third point is be willing to be a friend that listens to understand. And I think sounds so simple, but I think it really is a very special gift when you have a friend and when you are a friend that genuinely listens to seek and just make a friend feel very understood and very seen. And I think about times when I'm like talking to someone and when you can just kind of tell that someone is listening to you because they ultimately are just like waiting for their moment to respond. Like they're waiting for their moment to like insert their experience or insert their opinion or insert their advice or insert the way they've struggled with that. And sometimes like there's a time and place to insert all of those things, absolutely, of course, but there's just more times than not when I think we as humans just want to feel seen, we want to feel heard, and we want to feel understood. And so I think when it comes to friendships, the most beautiful thing that I've experienced in friendships is moments when I just know that I'm seen, heard, and understood. And so sometimes I know our friends don't need us to do anything other than just to listen. And it sounds so simple, but sometimes it's actually kind of hard. So with all of that said, Marissa, I would love to know, how are some of the ways that you love to make your friends feel so seen and heard in friendships?
Definitely the number one thing we just touched on, listening. That is absolutely how I feel like people feel seen. And it does sound so simple, but it's actually rare. I feel like, especially with social media and all of the noise that exists within our day-to-day lives, it's so hard to just sit there and be patient and make eye contact and just listen to what somebody's saying. And I think going beyond just listening, trying to truly understand what it is that they're actually saying, like what their heart is behind it, what are the struggles, asking follow-up questions if that's the case, or just sitting there and just being receptive and being present and being the safe place that they can just rest their words in that room, I think is really important. And so part of that, I think more than even what we can just communicate, is how we kind of respond to that. So I kind of think of like when you're a good listener, it leads to a sense of action, whether it's like these little tidbits that you'll touch on in the future. But I feel like it's a chance for us to kind of take notes towards like, these are the things that really matter to my friend, or here's where they're at and what they're kind of going through. So if they share with you that they're having, kind of a challenging week, how can we follow up and be mindful of that and go beyond the conversation? So that could be shooting them a text, just a reminder that you're thinking of them, you're praying for them, that you love them, something that might brighten their day. That could be literally sending a Venmo for coffee or something.
Oh, I love that.
Just those little things I think are really special when I'm talking to somebody and they'll say, oh, this reminded me of something you said the other day. And I'm like, oh, wow, like they really are picking up on these little details and nuances. That makes me feel so seen.
Yeah.
And I know that in order to do that, you have to be a great listener. And so, I would just say go the extra mile in your friendships, challenge yourself. I feel like we all can improve on being stronger listeners. So just see what that kind of consists of. And something that helps me is when people are sharing, if I can then even just put like little notes in my phone of little things they might have said or how I can pray for them that week. And then through my daily prayers, that's bringing awareness towards them. And naturally, I start thinking of them. And it just makes me aware how I can be a better friend to them. So I think that's a piece that's really transformed some of my friendships, is when I go beyond and invite them into my prayer life. And so it can be really special.
Yeah, I love that. And I know that makes me feel so seen when I confide in a friend and I'm like, oh, I have this coming up, or I'm struggling with this, or whatever it may be, whether it's a high or a low. And like later that week, like a friend goes out of their way to be like, oh, I know you were struggling with this week. I'm praying for you. Or I know you were really excited about this. Like, I'm praying for you. Or
or like, how did it go?
Or how did it go? And when someone remembers, I think that's a really big thing. It's like when you notice someone remembering something that you said, even if it's a small, small detail, that just shows they were listening, and it makes me feel so seen. So that's a beautiful point. I love that.
That's so true. There's like no better feeling. I feel like my heart just like glows and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just feel like
I feel so seen.
It's so true. Yeah. It's all in the little details. And I think you can only unpack that when you're listening. But I feel like you are actually one of the best listeners I know. Truly, I think it's such a strength of yours. So do you have any kind of tips if somebody is wanting to learn, how can they be a better listener?
Well, thank you. I think one of the most beautiful things that I really try to do when I'm listening is I really try to engage with every single word that someone's sharing with me. So for example, like if someone's saying, yeah, like today was a really great day, and then they just proceed on with whatever they were talking about, I'm like, oh, well, what did you do today? And then maybe they start describing what they did today. And then I'm like, oh, well, what did you have for lunch today? And just like asking deeper questions that really engages with what they had to share. And I think like if someone's going through something hard or, going back to the describing their day example, I love to just ask further questions that really kind of get to the heart of what they're saying, even if it's something as simple as like talking about their day. So it's like if someone said it was a great day, I love to ask, how did you feel today? Like, did you feel happy? Did you feel joyful? Like, what were your experiences? And just really probing those extra additional questions that show that you are taking the extra time and going the extra mile to really understand and to really listen to every single thing that they have to say. Or for example, if a friend is confiding in me and they're speaking on maybe a tough week they've had, going beyond just asking them, oh, well, what happened this week? But instead, like asking, how did you feel this week? Like, did you feel anxious this week? Did you feel fearful this week? And just really, just kind of going a step further than even what they're describing. For me, I know when I'm on the receiving end of that, I feel so loved because it shows that they're really listening and that they are also further seeking to understand. But also, I think when you are the one asking those questions, you can just get a better picture of what that person is going through. Something I also personally really try my best to do, just so I can be the most present, is I try to detach myself from the conversation that someone else is speaking on as much as possible. And what I mean by that is I try to detach my personal experiences, opinions, or even like what I was thinking before meeting up with this friend. And I just try to be as present as possible when someone is sharing their day or what they're going through or anything at all, a situation. I try to like not be thinking about myself at all. And I know there's such a time and place to relate through experiences and to relate through emotions and to relate through circumstance. But me personally, I just try to navigate listening by just focusing on the other person. This is not an immediate time to like need to relate to my own experience or need to relate to my own emotion, but instead just focusing on that person first and foremost and just, really recognizing what they are going through versus trying to bring it back to myself. I think my greatest goal in conversation is to bring it back to myself as little as possible because it is so about the other person. It's not about me. And then as conversation unfolds, let it be a moment in time, an opportunity to relate it to maybe something I've gone through to provide that comfort. But initially, it's not about me. So that's probably my greatest advice. And so kind of going along with all of that, my next point is to be a friend that serves rather than a friend that solves. So
I love that statement.
Yeah, it's a good one because it is hard to do. And I know that there has been times in my life that I've just like so desired to be a friend that solves. And what I mean by that is we love our friends so much. And whether it's a newer friend or an older friend, there's a capacity of love that we all have for our friendships. And especially when someone is going through something hard, whether it's a circumstance or any problem they're navigating in their life, I think what we can initially think is the most valuable thing to do for our friends is to provide the solution. Like we want to be the problem solver. We want to be the fixer. We want to be the friend that they can come to and like poof, done. Like, we help them figure everything out. But what I've learned is, for one, we are very imperfect humans and we are not going to always have the solution to everything. We are not meant to have the solution to everything. So instead of just being quick to offer my opinion, my advice, or insert, well, this is what I would do if I were in your shoes. Instead, I try my best to help my friends navigate the problems on their own. And instead, I try to be a friend that serves them through listening, through seeking to understand, through all these different things and avenues. And through that, I try my best to be a friend that just serves them in that immediate moment. And so something that I really value in bringing to my friendships is really trying to push my friends towards helping them in their own self-trust, their own confidence, and their own understanding of themselves, and serving them in that way by like amplifying, like, you can trust yourself. Like, what do you think about this? What are you like? How are you processing this versus inserting what I would do? Because ultimately, my greatest hope in my friendship is that I'm growing this friend so much that they are feeling more capable within themselves to be able to navigate their own life, their own problems, their own highs and lows. And so that's how I like to show up as a friend that serves versus a friend that solves. And something that I really ask often, especially when I'm helping a friend like navigate a situation, is, would you rather hear my opinion in this moment, or would you rather just me sit here and listen? Because I think there's a time and place for both. There is a time to help a friend solve a problem, but there's a time when our friends are not asking us to fix everything for them. They're asking us to simply listen to them. And that's when being a friend that serves really comes in handy. So with all of that said, I know that it can feel so intimidating when a friend is like going through a situation or a problem that maybe we've never gone through, and we're like, how do I solve this? I don't know how to solve this. And that's when being a friend that serves comes in handy. So how do you show up for friends when you feel like you don't always have the perfect words or advice to give?
Yeah, I think that's something that I've struggled with a little bit because I am such a problem solver. So I feel like my value is offering advice. And so I'm kind of almost, when people are sharing, I think sometimes I need to distinguish that, like you were mentioning, in my mind of, okay, they didn't specifically say like, hey, can I have your advice on this thing? They're just sharing this problem. And something that I remind myself of is, it's not about what we say, it's how we make somebody feel. So I am there to comfort that person. And ultimately, that is what's most valuable. You know, they're probably hearing like so much advice from people all of the time, and we just need to equip them. It's their life. They're fully capable of handling it themselves. And so just being supportive, meeting them where they're at. If it's, you know, a hard time, like if they're really struggling, I think just being that shoulder for them. And something that comes to mind with this is Romans 12:15. And it says, rejoice with those who are rejoicing and weep with those who weep. I love that because it's not anything we have to do really, or it's not this knowledge we have to have. It's just truly carrying their burdens with them. When they have pain, we're recognizing that pain and we're feeling it with them. When they have joy, we're celebrating with them. So I think it's really just meeting your friends where you're at and just loving them well during that process. And it's probably better sometimes if you don't know how to solve their problem because you're resisting that urge to just come in and fix it. And you can just sit there and listen and just be a true friend. I feel like that's what friendship is. It's doing life with one another and it's experiencing those raw emotions with them. So that's really the beauty to friendship.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I love the word that you use, like equipping our friends. I think that's such a powerful word because at the end of the day, it's like what an honor it is to help a friend solve a problem, but also what a joy it is to help equip our friends to just be able to solve problems on their own. Because I think at the end of the day, like friendships are so valuable. They're so necessary. Community is everything. But there should never be a sense of dependency of like, I need this person in order to, you know, figure out my life. It's like when we're really helping our friends and really equipping our friends, we're ultimately serving them through allowing them to trust themselves more, grow in that confidence more, and just provide them with the tools they need and a sounding board to feel safe in whatever situation they're navigating or problem they're solving, and ultimately just empowering them to be like, you got this. I'm here to help you. I'm here to listen with you. I'm here to empower you, but you are capable of solving this. I think that's like the most beautiful thing. So point number 5 out of our 6 is be willing to communicate and confront your friends. Confrontation, baby. It is so uncomfortable. I know it is probably, I don't think anyone like initially just naturally loves confrontation, but oh my gosh, is it so beyond necessary? And something that, I mean, I think just with time, with age, with growing and in maturity, you realize the value of confrontation. I think confrontation gets a very negative perception because it's viewed as strictly conflict, but confrontation actually, in my eyes, is not conflict. It's actually one of the most loving acts that we can do towards a friend, because when we are confronting a friend, it's providing the opportunity to remove any resentment, upset, or any sort of 1% of division that can come between you and another person. And I've found in my life, if I love a friend enough, I will not allow anything to come between us. And that includes, you know, even a small comment that may have hurt my feelings, or even a small moment that may have upset me. Like, I don't want to provide any opportunity for lies to come in that would like divide our friendship, or any opportunity for resentment to start building up in my heart. And so I've found in my life that the more that I communicate and confront my friends, which is normal and healthy, the more that I actually feel closer to my friends after confronting them. So like I said, I think confrontation is so uncomfortable. And it can be the most loving thing we can do. But Marissa, I would love to hear, how do you navigate hard conversations within your own friendships? Because I know I need advice. We all need advice out here on how we do that.
I need advice too. I am no master at this, but it was huge. I can specifically remember those moments in my friendships when friends have confronted me, and it was just one of those moments where I was like, this is a friend for life. Like, somebody that can confront you well. I'm like, I know they're doing it because they love me. And also, this is such an opportunity for growth that now I go out and seek people that are comfortable with confrontation and that I know are going to call me to be a better person, call me out on things, can communicate how they're feeling, because that relieves stress. I don't have to tiptoe around if I hurt their feelings. So I think just reminding myself that confrontation is beautiful when I receive it well. So that is just a reminder I tell myself when I have to go and confront somebody, where I'm like, okay, I hope that they're going to be able to receive it that way. And number one, I think that's surrounding yourself with people that also value that, where you guys are all on the same page, that we are trying to become better versions of ourselves, and we want to speak honestly with one another. We want to help the other person grow, and it will be a safe space. And so you can kind of remove that fear and that stigma with confrontation.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think we really want to communicate, and that is kind of redefine what confrontation even looks like, because a lot of times it is just communicating. It's just kind of expressing how you're feeling. And so I think when you're going to confront somebody, remove any desire to accuse them.
Yeah, that's good.
Just come up to them and kind of share your experience and say, hey, this is how I feel. This is the perspective that I kind of saw that situation play out. And you're just authentically trying to communicate your experience, what you're feeling, and giving that other person the opportunity to understand, but then also to explain their perspective as well. And that's where it really becomes a conversation rather than an accusation. And so also too, with that, I think it's important to assume the best in our friends when we are going to confront them, that we're not trying to just call them out. We're trying to understand where they're coming from, because most likely their intentions were so pure and kind, and there is just a miscommunication. So really go into it trying to clear the air, trying to find a sense of resolution, and be very receptive to what they're saying, because I think it creates an opportunity for you to learn and grow with that as well, or just gain a better understanding of somebody else and become more self-aware of yourself. So if you were facing conflict, Brie, how would you kind of navigate that? Or do you have any kind of examples of times you've had to do that?
Yeah, I love that. I love everything you shared as well. I think it was so powerful. And I want to speak on the point of like assuming the best of your friends, because I think in the examples I'm going to provide and in some of my own friendships, I have seen how when a friend has assumed the best of me, or I've assumed the best of a friend, that is when confrontation and, conflict resolution, if you will, like no longer has to be this scary thing, because it's not this thing that I'm going into to point blame. It's not this thing that I need to go into and feel like I need to feel defensive about. It's two people confronting one another, but there's so much love and so much assuming of the best of one another that it can actually be a very loving conversation. Because I think confrontation can always initially sound like, okay, it's time to point the finger and it's time to put the guard up. But I think when both of those things are left at the door and you're not bringing either of those scenarios into a confrontational communication or conversation, that's when it's actually a really beautiful conversation to have. And I think about conversations I've had with my best friend. One of the reasons why she is my best friend is because we confront each other so much. And I think about different examples, like within conversations, whether I'm sharing my opinion on something or my experience on something. And there's been times where my best friend will just like interrupt my train of thought in like a loving way and be like, hey, Brie, I just want to let you know, like in this immediate moment, the way this conversation is making me feel, it's making me feel like I need to be kind of defensive. It makes me feel like I need to take this personally with what you're saying, but I know that's probably not your intention. I just want to let you know that's how I'm feeling. And I'm kind of closing myself off to this conversation because I'm just feeling this way. I just want to ask you, like, what are your intentions behind saying this? And can you just affirm me in this moment that what you're saying is not something I need to take personally? And there's times where, I mean, that sounds like, whoa, like such a huge confrontation to have in a conversation. But I found, like, at least in my friendship with my best friend, it's the fluidity of those kind of conversations of like, hey, this is making me feel this way and I don't love it. Like, I know your intentions are pure, but can you just affirm me in this moment that you didn't mean it this way? Or affirm me that you're not trying to, I don't know, put me down or something like that. And when we can just have such a healthy, honestly, kind of casual conversation about it, it just clears the air so immediately. I think about another example that my best friend, same friend I'm referring to, she's taught me so much about confrontation, and I pray vice versa. There was a specific trip that we went on, and I like can't even recollect like the specific instance of what happened, but a couple months later, like after this trip, she called me and we were just catching up, and she like brought up something that had happened while we were on this trip, like a conversation. And she was like, hey, Brie, like, I love you so much that I can't allow 1% of resentment to stand between you and I. And I'm just finding myself like repeating the specific conversation we had on our trip over and over again in my head. And it's just bothering me and I can't get it out of my head. And I just want to like release myself of it and also let you know a way that it kind of hurt me. And so I'm going to share this just so we can like clear the air. And she shared what I had said that had hurt her. And I had truly no idea, like would never have guessed, would have never even remembered that conversation. And of course, naturally, like I think as humans, when we're confronted, my guard like kind of went up a little bit, but she just kept reminding me, she's like, Brie, I'm not pointing the blame on you. I'm not saying that what you did was wrong. Like, I know that you love me, but I just want to bring awareness to a way that I felt hurt. And when she approached me with so much love, like, though I instinctually want to become defensive and want to close off, it really, one, gave me an opportunity to like kind of put a mirror up to myself and be like, okay, like, this is a way that I didn't realize maybe I could hurt people's feelings in a conversation. 2, this is a way to sharpen myself. 3, this is a way to like bring resolution between her and I. But also, it just made me realize how much she loved me to literally not allow 1% of resentment come between her and I. And for that, like, I appreciated it so much. And though, like I said, easier said than done, the more you are fluid with those kind of conversations, the easier it gets. It really is like a muscle that you have to flex and work out, just like when you're working out at the gym. Like, you have to just be active in doing that. Otherwise, it's always going to feel really hard to have confrontation, understandably so. So yeah, I think just keeping that in mind, if you love a friend enough, love them enough to not allow even 1% of resentment come between the two of you guys. So with all of that said, our last and final point, number 6, is invite your friends into your life. And it is quite as direct as it sounds. Think about all of your favorite things you like to do, whether it's going on a walk or going to coffee shops or going to your favorite restaurant. Ultimately, friendships are people in your life that you want to do life alongside. So I think the most beautiful thing that we can do is invite our friends into our lives, invite them into our favorite things to do, invite them to the places that you're going and the things that you're seeing and whatever it may be. I think there's something so beautiful when you start experiencing favorite things with a new friend or with a longtime friend. It just creates like a sense of unity and bond. And so, Marissa, what are some of the ways that you like to invite friends into your life?
Yeah, this can be a little bit challenging just because of where we are at geographically. We're about like 30 minutes away from all of our close friends. So it's been, I think, a beautiful thing in a lot of ways because sometimes friendship can just be due to proximity. And I think it's forced us to be super intentional. But with that said, I think I've been surprised when I actually just invite people. So something we love doing is just inviting people over to our home, whether that's cooking dinner or watching a movie or honestly just hanging out and doing nothing. That to me is so much fun. And I've been surprised to see how receptive people are. Like, if you just extend that invite, and we always try to keep it super casual so there's no pressure. And that's what I would recommend doing. Just say, hey, I'm doing this thing. I'm going on a sunset walk right now. If you happen to be free, would love for you to join. But it doesn't put that pressure where they'll feel bad if they have to say no.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of sharing those moments and saying like, here's what my week looks like. You're more than welcome to join on any of those things. Or if you want to cook a meal together, I would love that. Just kind of giving them the opportunity to be involved, know what's going on in your life, and just kind of extend that open invitation. And I think that's what kind of takes friendships beyond just friends to actual community. Because you actually get to do life together. And so I know like one of my friends, she'll literally just run errands with me where she'll like, we'll get gas in my car, we'll wash my car, we'll go to the grocery store. And it is the sweetest thing. I think it's brought us so much closer in a lot of ways because it's not just these like very curated hangouts. It's just these raw moments and the conversations we have in it. Or even when we just sit next to each other and don't speak for an hour, I'm like, this is friendship because we are just so comfortable with one another. So I think it's a beautiful thing and something that kind of just naturally happens when you're college age. But coming out of that, I'm like, absolutely just invite people, and it is really special, the moments and memories you can kind of create out of that. But that, I think, kind of wraps up our episode. Yeah. Are there any final thoughts on friendship? I've loved this conversation.
Oh my gosh, me too. And even just to like touch on that final point that you shared, I mean, I'm such a quality time girl. So like when my friends are like, hey, Brie, like I'm going to go get groceries or I'm going to do something so mundane. Like, I want you to come with me, or like, are you free to come? Oh my gosh, I feel so loved by that. And it really can just like be that simple of just invite your friends into like the messy, like cleaning your room, doing your laundry, you know, whatever it may be. And I don't know, it's like moments like that you're like, wow, like this is my person. That if you can like do just the most mundane of chores or activities or errands and still just find so much joy and peace in their presence, like it's such a beautiful thing. But I would say final thoughts on friendship. I mean, gosh, I just pray that this conversation encouraged you guys as much as it has encouraged us. I know, like I shared at the beginning, friendship is so important because the friends that you have in your life, the community that you have in your life, it affects everything. It affects who you are as a person. It affects who, like your career. It affects your sense of purpose. It really affects your quality of life. It affects my faith. Definitely the people I surround myself with and who's speaking into my life and who's encouraging me. And it really like it changes everything, whether you have really great friends in your corner or you don't. So I just pray that this conversation could be such an encouragement. And I think my ultimate encouragement and last piece of advice is to be the friend that someone is praying for. So even if you feel like maybe you don't have those friends in your life or you are desiring those friends to come into your life, I think the first step to inviting that is to be the friend who is that. And so you can be someone's next answered prayer. You can be the friend that everyone wants to have in their corner. You can be the one who listens and the one who serves. And if you're showing up that way, I'm confident that God is going to bring the people alongside you to show up for you in that way as well. So yeah, I would say that's my greatest advice. Be the friend that someone's praying for and work on your own heart and focus on yourself, and everything else will follow. So we are going to answer some fun questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
First little question in our last minute rapid fire. If you could teleport anywhere right now, where would you go?
I would go to the Amalfi Coast. I was actually looking that up earlier today, where I'm trying to plan a trip with my husband, and it just looks so beautiful. And I'm like, oh my gosh, can I just be there right now? Can it be summertime? That seems so magical.
Literally magic. Wait, should I answer these
yes.
too? Okay. I promise I'm not copying, but I would say Italy. I don't know where in Italy. I was in Tuscany back in September, and I just like can't get Tuscany out of my mind. So I would also meet you in Italy, but I think I'd do Tuscany.
Okay, we can meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, we can meet somewhere in the middle. Next question is, what would your last meal be?
I am thinking, I think this is going to change every day, but today,
yes,
I have a bit of a sweet tooth, and I just want to load up with some just like fluffy pancakes stacked, and I want tons of fruit covering, some maple syrup, and then some coconut cream compote. I don't even know what that means, but I'm like, I want that, and that would just be a delicious way to just call it a day.
Call it a day. That sounds so amazing. I would say, going back to Italy, there is just this specific plate of pasta that I think will forever be ingrained in my memory. And it was at this, like, I don't even remember like the name of it, but it was in the Tuscan like countryside after I'd just gotten like done at a winery. And it was literally the most amazing plate of pasta in my whole entire life. I think it was like a sassio e pepe pasta. I never know if I'm saying that right. But if I had to have one last meal, it would definitely be that exact plate of pasta on the Tuscan countryside of Italy.
Wait, was it like a red pasta? What kind of situation?
White. Ooh, wait, okay. Is that? I hope that's the right name that I'm thinking of. But it had truffle on it too.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh. Me and truffle besties. That's
okay,
like
we're gonna
favorite thing.
Order pasta after this.
I know, truly. And honestly, I think I'm a white sauce girl. I know red sauce is like the classic, but white sauce pasta,
I love that. It's underrated for sure.
It's so good. Okay, next question. What is your favorite word at the moment?
So I was thinking about this, and I think it's going to be peace. This has just been probably like since we started talking about doing the podcast, I've just kept having like peace come to mind constantly. And I'm like, I am just letting peace guide the direction of this year. And so it's just a word that as I say peace, it brings me peace. And I probably say it like 30 times a day at this point.
I love that.
I just love that word. It makes me just feel relaxed.
I love that. That's such a great word. I would say my word would be joy. And I actually think this is like not even a word that is my favorite at the moment. I think joy is like one of my favorite words in general. I just love joy. I love choosing joy. I love pursuing joy. I love feeling joy. And I think it's like all about the perspective that you keep and that you choose. And so I think for me, at least, when I view life through the lens of joy, gosh, does it just amplify it like times a million. It just makes everything that much better. So
I love that you say joy is a choice. I feel like I don't really hear people say that. They're like, they want to feel joy, but they don't know that they have the opportunity to feel joy. So I love the way you talk about joy. I'm like, oh, I'm going to choose more joy.
Yeah, we're going to be joyous and peaceful. Okay, last question, which I think this is going to be a funny one because I don't know why. I just have a feeling our answers might be similar, but we'll see. So who do you wish was sitting at this table with us in this very moment?
Okay, we're going to say it at the same time.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I really feel like it might be so similar. Let's see. Okay.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Jay Shetty. I literally knew it. I feel like we talk about Jay Shetty's podcast.
We're his biggest fan.
All the time, that we are like, if we could just have a conversation with him, I feel like it would be the most incredible conversation.
One day. We're dreaming that up.
One day, Jay Shetty, you're going to be on our podcast, or maybe we'll be on yours. But yeah, that wraps up today's episode.
That's everything.
That's everything. Thank you guys again for listening and tuning in today. We pray that you just walk away so encouraged and uplifted, and ultimately remember that we are your friends on the internet and we are here to just invite you into our friendship. So thank you guys. We love y'all so much. And until our next episode, bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. We pray this episode was encouraging and life-giving. If you found it valuable, please share it with a friend, leave a review, and subscribe.
And be sure to follow us along over on Instagram at With Love Always Podcast. Signing off with all of our love always, Bree
and Marissa.